So this happens all the time in professional life, where your colleagues who are supposed to be running the meeting. Sometimes one of them doesn't show up. Sometimes all three don't show up. Here's a dress rehearsal for professional life. What do you do when your three colleagues who are supposed to run the meeting don't show up? What do you do? You fill in for them. You step up. This is a chance for leadership. Right? So, what are questions? What are the urgent questions that we need to get answers to? Right? The show must go on. Do you have a sense of urgency to prepare for your success in professional life that you need to get something? You need to figure some stuff out. What are the things you need to figure out? Go. Let's maybe turn on lights and we'll.
I gotta turn on the light, Glenn.
Oh, yeah. Close your eyes.
Close your eye.
Brace yourself. Prepare for impact.
Be careful, turn on the bonfire. Okay, you see, turn the light.
Okay, we need questions quick. We don't have time. What are you did the reading, you did a discussion. What are the questions that we need to answer? Keith,
Fragmentation and how to fix it.
what is it?
How to fix fragmentation.
Fragmentation?
What type of fragmentation? Spatial, social, economic.
All of the above?
So in order to answer questions, sometimes we have to narrow down definition, what we're talking about.
There's the spatial aspect.
And the spatial aspect of fragmentation, great. That's good, that's a good one. Very important.
Yeah, we're gonna be talking about that a lot the next few weeks.
Yeah,
Get into race.
yeah.
Okay,
So we'll talk about race in a few weeks, some of them, I don't know if we'll address that today, but
what else? What else do we need answers for? Is everything fine? You're fine with the way the world is? You can go to work and just keep doing what the last generation did and everything's fine? That makes sense, that makes.
Guess maybe how can we learn from communities,
Communities? Specifically, how can architects catalyze community formation?
Be informed by,
And,
okay.
and then help
and be to be able to understand them and then help them,
produce them.
yes.
Robert, you have more experience than me. What happened? We will answer this in a couple of weeks. Is that okay? This is the space.
Who knows?
We're talking about the spatial democracy in a couple of weeks. Emmy. So
Design
what
house.
else? What else? I'm sorry. Good word. Which one? Spatial democracy. Okay, so you are. We'll talk about that. Yeah. So yeah, right. So what else?
You can say no.
That's okay.
Maybe the world is much better than we think it is.
Yeah. So
Maybe it's-
so relaxed.
Well, how's it going, guys? You have a good weekend? Anything going on in the world that requires urgent attention? Gio, you're up here. You do. That's what the profession expects of you. Well, we got your back. We'll support you. I'll sit with you. Where would you like to sit? You okay here?
Yes.
Okay, your teammates aren't here. We're grateful that you're here. Jake and Adrian. Oh. You here, Jake? Okay, so we're grateful that you're here, Jake. Did you come up with any questions, the three of you?
Yeah.
while you're getting your act together, you take your time. Any other questions? Is Gio, we all wait for Gio's teammates and that, what else? Everything's fine? You're okay with the way the world is?
You are not. She says she's not okay with the world.
You're not okay with, what's wrong with the world?
What is wrong?
What can designers do to,
Kevin, hey, you have to raise your.
Yeah,
Kevin's the start of it. He's getting a promotion. He has to, keep doing that rhino drafting thing. That's good. You just stay right there. Kevin, leadership.
I guess like how can designers serve I guess like the well-being and the common folk, I guess.
Do you think we should serve the wealthy?
Well, I think
No,
it's
say
not like we
yes,
should.
take a risk, say yes and make an argument. Say no, it's easy, you know?
Okay.
Say yes and make an argument.
I guess I'll say yes,
Uh-huh.
because you kind of have to. They're the ones who have money, they have the power. So,
Okay, like like a Robin Hood experience.
yeah, I think you kind of just have to serve both at the same time, find a way to have this.
Yeah, it's like what Fajardo did. He
What's
said,
up around today?
fellow wealthy people. Let's talk, fellow wealthy people.
Come here,
Come
we'll give
over
you
here.
facility.
Look. Let's face it, life in Medellin, the murder capital of the world, is pretty miserable. How about if we fix that? But the only way to fix it is to push pause on lavishing greater wealth and constantly stacking money on top of money for us, okay? Let's just push pause and let's help the worst off. If we help the people at the bottom, the crime rate will go down and then the environment for business success will improve, right? So this is not, it sounds crazy when you say it out loud,
Yeah.
right? It sounds like a betrayal of the majority. But, we have to pay off our student loans too. So everyone has to find their comfort zone.
Probably a way to game the system is to negotiate with them and distribute their own market.
Yeah.
They're already there.
Yeah, Fajardo is negotiating with drug cartels and the wealthy
Yeah.
at the same time. Gio, what do you got? You got some questions?
Yeah.
Listen, you're alone here. You can just say it and I'll write it. How about that? Because we gotta move on.
Okay. Right, so there's 6 questions we found that were, probably perfect to cross discussion, or like, that were like repeated, because actually we had similar questions. One of them was, long-term social environmental consequences of the Southern California system.
What are the consequences? What happens if we keep extending the Southern California system? All right?
Which I feel it has been answered by like examples of the Netherlands experiment about their development. And also perspective about who's gained, who loses, and that system.
Who wins and who loses?
Yeah.
Well, that's interesting. Next week, my lecture is called the Los Angeles School. So that is the Southern California system. What is the Southern California system? Some will call it the LA school system. What happens if we keep expanding the LA school system? That's next week. Who wins and who loses? Okay, what else?
Why does privatization cause harm and perpetuate social segregation?
Why or how does? How does privatization cause harm? Can we make it how?
Don't figure out.
Is privatization always bad?
Damien, what do you think? Privatization always bad?
I mean, not necessarily if they're like nonprofit, but that's what I wrote about, so. So when they go private, most wealthy people wants to get wealthier, and then on the backs of poor people, so. It has up and down.
Yeah, okay. Damien,
I don't necessarily think going privatized is inherently bad because, I mean, without a doubt, broken walls around money. And if someone who is poor is making their come up in whether it's business or something, it does end up becoming privatized, and that's just how business works. But there's also, don't ask me how, but I feel like there are benefits to privatized.
yeah, self-interest.
Yeah, there's some interest about how something becomes privatized and then we're gonna happen because like you're okay, bigger things usually headed by the right person who has the opportunity to have more help towards communities. I feel like there's a lot of opportunity there. So humans are bad. That's what I'm hearing now.
Okay. Go ahead.
Someone asked about effective methods to incorporate for economic success.
Incorporate what?
Methods, Western methods of economic success.
Western methods of economic success.
Yes.
And what's the question?
What are methods of economic success that the West uses?
Okay.
Like basically asking what is the good systems.
Grid? Oh, what was the word? Grid? Good.
I think it's actually something really good.
Okay. So it's a question about Western methods of success, economic and otherwise. Yeah, what else?
Last two questions. It's asking about essentially political strategies, for like, to remedy.
Local strategies to remedy problems.
Yeah,
What are the best local strategies?
yeah, which is the general scope of this class, basically.
Right, so local to wherever we're looking at. Okay. And really local, it's kind of Western, like imposing things from the West, Western methods of success on the rest of the world, and local methods of success, and how do you negotiate between the two, getting the best of both worlds? Is that fair? Okay. Gio, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Gio, remember that at the end is your role. I'm sorry that you're alone today.
Yeah.
It's not our fault. It's your role to see what these questions were answered and what is missing. And you have to update the Google's Doc with these questions as well.
Okay,
So I need to say a word.
please.
There is something related to the class, but not completely.
Uh-huh.
It's about F1Bs and migration. Can I say
Okay,
something,
please.
word about that? Yeah, so there are, this society, I would say in this case, America, has certain rules to address certain issues. And one of them is migration. So I don't know if everyone agrees, and this is the reason because I have this here. So everyone agreed that. Oh, okay, I can make a claim that migration is being good for this country. So do you have any doubt about that?
No.
Oh, so migration is being good for this country. Plus certain migrants relative in their past, your parents, your grandfathers, your great-grandfather, raise your hands, just to know. So most of you, okay,
Who has relatives or ancestors who migrated to this country?
yeah, raise your hand, please. Everybody,
Everybody.
everybody.
Unless
So-
you're any indigenous people.
Yeah, so today we'll talk about ideas that flows. So today is basically about flows of ideas. Sometimes these ideas can be imposed by Western cultures, affecting or harming a local forms of success, but also ideas flows for the good, and that's a result of that is migration. I'm saying that because I don't know if we have F1 visa students here. I don't want to ask in order to be respectful. I was an F1 student when I came to this country 10 years ago, and I was with that visa for 3 years. And that was the way that I was received or welcome to this amazing country. And I don't know if you know that this visa is now endangered. So there is one university, one fellow university across the river that was possible to have the visa was revoked. With Safe Harbor. I don't know what that will happen, that is in the court, but we know that if that happened to Harvard, that can happen to all. It's at the end, we're fellow universities. So my point is that I'm here to, in a day where we will talk about the ideas of flows, I want to make a claim for migration and to say that, in my opinion, migration is what makes worlds better, or one of the things that makes worlds better. So I want to, and for that reason, I may make a little tweak in the class today to talk about the good of migration of flows of ideas, in addition to the harms of migrations of flows.
And remember last week, the point was made that moving forward in the future, the competition between nation states is going to become of necessity for countries to survive. They have to attract immigration to survive.
Yeah.
Without attracting immigration, local economies, nation states will fall. And this is the big fear. So this whole thing of saying who immigration is bad.
Yeah. And actually,
The situation.
if you want to know more about this topic, Ricardo Hausman, head of the school from Harvard. He has a research supporting many cities in the world, studying research in many cities in the world, and he demonstrated that there is a correlation between cities that have migrants and the cities that have success. Those cities that have that for some reason they do not receive migrants, they have issues to become better cities. And you can look at Ricardo Hausman's research. That's everything for me.
So just a quick thing, students in the past have said, can you stop spending the full lecture time telling us how to do proper note citation? So, okay, message received, we're not going to talk about it. Except to say that many people in your generation are trying to convince themselves and the rest of the world that because of COVID, we can't pay attention to details. We can't read something and follow instructions. We can't. We're the COVID generation. Okay, I get it. Empathy, compassion, and support. At the same time, to be a successful design professional requires us to read vast volumes of code requirements and zoning regulations and specifications and details. This profession is detail-oriented. If you are not good at tracking details and you want to stay in this profession, then you better compensate pretty quickly. You better do whatever it takes. I had a very successful boss that I worked for, and he had all kinds of attention deficit disorders, and he made lists. He was a very successful architectural practitioner because he was obsessive about making lists. Went against his grain, but he followed those details and he succeeded. I was very impressed. These are the summary of how to do a successful note citation. When Art Daly at the end says, here's how to cite this source, that's useful. It gives us the core information that we need to put into our footnote citation for footnotes and image sources, but it's in the wrong format. It's in the reference or bibliography format and style. It is incorrect. You follow it, you will lose the points. You will lose the points last week, you will lose the points this week, you will lose the points for the rest of your careers, because people won't take you seriously because you can't be bothered to conform to the standards of the profession. Then maybe you're missing details in other ways. So I don't want to, Mackenzie got it right? You got it right.
Okay.
So you want one?
Now take it.
I also want.
Gio got it right. Gio, do you want one of these? You don't need one because you got it right. How'd you do it? How'd you get the right? Do you want one of these?
I didn't know I got it right.
You got it right. You didn't notice because you didn't get any points taken away. You didn't get a long comment. Here's how to do it right. Oh, God, it takes so long to take the corrections on those. Please get it right. You're killing us.
And how many people got it right in here?
3 of the students in my
Really?
section got it right.
Yeah, so there are things in our profession that requires many revisions, many reviews. And that's the reason because I'm asking Robert to give me that again. So I have some experience making dissertation. I have Zotero that works help for me. I built a GPT in ChatGPT exclusively to review that for me. So I have friends that help me. And sometimes I ask that person to review that for me. My wife is an expert in this topic, and Carolina always helps me with that. And with all of these help, I have to review that again.
And some of us are used to publishing in the social sciences.
Yeah.
It's a different format.
Yeah.
Some of us are used to publishing in places other than the United States. So sometimes we put our punctuation inside the quotation marks in the United States. And I have to remind myself, this is not British English. We're in the United States now, so put your punctuation inside the quotation marks. I'm not writing for the social sciences, I'm writing for architecture, it's the humanities, cited according to the Chicago Manual of Style.
Yeah.
We're constantly having to adapt.
So, but the problem is that when you are doing your assignment, plan to dedicate an additional extra time to revise and review again your citations.
And ask a friend. And pretty soon Samiha's gonna know how to do this. And she's being paid, your tuition money is going to Samiha in the Success Studio to support you in getting the footnotes right. Don't go yet. Don't ask her yet. She's not ready. But pretty soon, she's gonna be ready. And it's not cheating to ask Samiha how to do this. Or Cheeto, or Mackenzie. Who else got it right? Kelly got it right. Yeah. All right, so look at how big that list is. I'm gonna do my best, and I apologize for the pace of this presentation. I've learned so much about this topic in the last few years, and I always struggle with this lecture because there's so much. The other thing that's hard, there's a lot of architects the culture of architecture. Let's talk about the culture of architects. Culture of architects is that we're inheriting, as in you're inheriting. So many of my generation feel like, I don't know, man, I'm a designer. I do what the client asks, and I don't need to know all this other stuff, right? Who's with me? I don't need to know this other stuff. But the world is on fire, and the world needs architects to step up and be creative and use this creative imagination, these superpowers that you are accumulating day in, day out at this amazing architectural program. These superpowers need to become a force for good. They need to be applied to things outside of the traditional boundaries of what the former generation, was so cuddly and cozy. Ooh, I'm going to design museums, and I'm going to create beauty, and I don't care about social issues, right? We don't have time for that. We can't afford to do that anymore. We need to go wherever the problems take us. The problems determine the territory of our professional lives. So, money. Who's comfortable with money? I hate money. I'm not comfortable with money. But if the solution to the problems require us to look at financial issues, then I'm courageous. I'm a dedicated professional. I took an oath of ethical practice. I will go wherever the problem needs me to go to find a solution, including that scary territory that is money and finance and economics. So let's start in Jakarta, Indonesia. If you did that first reading, that's part of the story. The emphasis of that reading is cultural appropriation and cultural embrace that about Southern California real estate styles and how they are embraced. And at the same time, the second message of the first reading is it's adapted to fit our local lifestyle here in Indonesia. Right, so it's outwardly, superficially very Southern California, but inwardly it's been adapted to local practices. Very interesting story. We're going to go at it a little differently because the solution to a lot of these problems have to do with money. So I was bored one day. I went out for a bike ride. I ended up miles and miles out of town. I was interested. Hey, look, there's a suburban sprawl. That looks like the United States. I was in Indonesia at the time. And so I pull up to this neighborhood. It looked kind of new, but it wasn't that new. It turned out these houses had been there for 4 or 5 years. And there were a few people out in the front yards. And I said, so, hey, hi, how you doing? What's up here? You guys live here? And they said, oh, no, we don't live here. We work here. I said, oh, what do you do? I said, I'm a gardener. She's the housekeeper. And I say, well, where are the families? Oh, they live in town. And so through questioning, what I figured out is that families living in town were purchasing these houses. Whenever they had a child, they would purchase a house. And when that child was ready to get married and needed a house in town, they would sell the house and use that money to set up the young couple to get them launched. And so no one lived here. The gardeners and the housekeepers would get paid to stay there overnight, so no one broke in and stole the copper pipes and the copper wires and the bathroom fixtures and resell them. So there was a guard and a gardener and a housekeeper to keep it clean, to maintain the value of the house. So these houses were built and no one lived in them for decades.
But you just said that they paid the housekeepers to live in it.
Well, they pull a cot out. They don't sleep in the,
They're not living, they're just like occupying.
Yeah, they have a house, they have kids in town.
I see.
They get someone to take care of their kids and then they take their shift, basically standing guard overnight. So that's interesting. I had never heard of that before. That a house, that the only thing that matters is the investment value of the house. Crazy. Have you heard of anything like this? Have you heard of anything like this?
Yes.
You have?
Yeah.
Okay.
Just land,
Was it?
just landowning.
Landowning, but with a house on it. Well, I thought about this a little more, and it's like, oh, it's just like my house that I grew up in, suburban outside of New York City, where we had this extraordinarily large house for a family of 5. And there were 2 rooms that we hardly ever used. There was a dining room that we only ate there twice a year. And there was a living room that we only used once a year for Christmas. And I would say, but then there was another part of the house, the kitchen and the family room, that was jammed. We were always crowded in this one space where everything was happening. And I asked my mom, what's up with this? Why is this living room? And she said, oh, the real estate agent told us this was a good thing to have for when we sell the house. The living room and the dining room are there because buyers expect there to be a formal living room and a formal dining room. We don't use it, but it's important for the resale value when we sell it. So this is a way of introducing 2 fundamental concepts of value. The value of something is a combination of its use value and its exchange value. We live in houses and it's very useful to live in a house. It keeps the rain off us. It keeps us warm. It keeps us safe, right? It's very useful to have a house. But if you own a house, it's also a source of wealth. Chances are, if you have a conversation with your parents, chances are Wentworth students generally, out of families of Wentworth students, the wealth of the families is in large part the wealth that has accumulated over the years because the house that they purchased has gained value. And for some of us, it's the value of the house that allows us to send our children to college. It's a very, very important financial instrument of most US families with children in college. That's just statistically the case. Different, very, individual performance may vary. But this is where I found it like it hit home. I get it. Use value, exchange value. But it turns out that the implications of houses that are 100% exchange value and zero use value are enormous. And if you are curious about, I would suggest another question. What's up with housing affordability? What's up with that? Why is things so housing affordability? What's up with housing affordability? It turns out, the punchline, in case I run out of time, it's increasingly housing is not for homes. Increasingly, housing is for investment. And I'm sorry, on behalf of the older generation, we apologize for this situation. You will be paying the price. You are paying the price now. The rents you pay, whether you're living on Mission Hill or living in Wentworth dormitories or living at home because both of those options are too expensive, chances are a significant component of the reason why this is so expensive is that housing has become a major instrument of investment and wealth accumulation.
Professor, are you suggesting that that is the core of gentrification?
It's a component. It's a significant component of gentrification, which I don't know if did we give up on gentrification or should we have gentrification on the wall?
Yeah.
Okay, gentrification.
So we have that from 2 weeks ago, but then.
Yeah. And chances are it's going to be up here next week and the week after and next semester and your entire careers. What's up with housing affordability? What's up with gentrification? What can designers do? Well, step one, understand the problem. So if you read that first writing, you'll know the story of the real estate, the invention of the real estate market in other countries.
What is your take on like rental properties like Airbnbs, considering it is primarily for profit of the owner, so it has the actual value, but
Yeah.
at the same time it's constantly, well, not constantly being used because there are parts of the season where it's not in use.
Yeah. Well, that's an example of exchange value can become a great source of wealth. But here's an example where use value, extraordinarily expensive cost per night, use value is also a source of income and wealth. Okay. So if you want to sell this real estate, make it look like Southern California real estate. Pretend this is a piece of America. Pretend this is a piece of France. Pretend this is a piece of, what is that? Wait, did you take history? Yeah, Brunelleschi's dome. So the architects of these developments, they basically go back to their textbook because they had textbooks, but they look back at their notes, they look back at the slides from History of Architecture 1 and 2, and they say, okay, let's make one of those. And they make Leaning Towers of Pisa, they make anything they studied in History of Architecture is something for them to replicate as part of selling real estate. Anything that makes it takes it away from the local situation of Indonesia and makes it part of something else. And we don't care, we can mix the Acropolis in Greece and the Colosseum in Rome, and we can put them together. We have Photoshop, we can collage these things. And what about Japan? Well, Japan was a greatly developed colonizing force in Asia. So Japan is just another form of successful, wealthy foreign image making that can be emulated here in these developments. It's a fascinating thing. And just like you photo collage things for marketing information, including cloaking the ethnic reality, then you can do that in built form as well. Rodeo Drive, but it's in Jakarta. It's not Beverly Hills, 90210. So I'm going to skip over some of this. Just as the capital of Jakarta exploded, they had to figure out how to expand to accommodate the growing population of Jakarta as it went from 1 million to 10 million to 27 million in the next coming years, one of the largest cities in the world. And it's got a very sensitive ecosystem. The coastal area is mangroves it's very sensitive coastal area, ecologically important. The hills to the south of Jakarta is where the water comes from. And so they have to be careful to maintain their water supply and reduce flooding downstream, because Jakarta is prone to flooding from coastal flooding and fluvial from the rivers during rainfalls. And so they looked at different models and they decided that if they just did it the way the US Southern California model of sprawl, of concentric ring roads to connect these sprawling subdivisions out here, that it would quickly overwhelm ecologically and in terms of flooding, it would make everything worse and it would be very, very expensive. The right thing to do is more like what the Dutch do, is build train lines along corridors and concentrate high density development along those train lines. And the Dutch, which colonized Indonesia for 3.5 centuries, came and they were doing a planning study. And this was the model that kept showing up as the important one, a linear city model based around rail. Because this is the area where you could build, and these are the areas that are sensitive. The super sensitive areas are light yellow. So concentrate your development along the North Coast where environmentally you could handle it. So every planning report would start with this hypothetical exercise. What's the appropriate model? But then the next chapter, when they said, so let's do this, they would basically ignore the recommendations of chapter 1 and propose the worst model, the concentric model. And in part because the president of the country, his family is involved in building freeways. So they built a freeway, then they built another freeway, then they built another freeway, then they built another freeway. And so they're joining cities around the world who are developing according to a US automobile sprawl suburbanization model imported from the United States. And this is a diagram we'll look at again next week, but this is the typical fragmentation model, the spatial social economic fragmentation model of Southern California, where you have gated communities, gated subdivision communities for whoever can afford it at the peripheries. Then you have freeways that take you into the center. And at the center, these office parks are increasingly also at the periphery. At these office parks, you have air-conditioned enclaves of luxury shopping, movie theaters, hotels, spas, restaurants, etc. So entertainment and work and home And you have an air-conditioned enclave at home, an air-conditioned enclave at work, and an air-conditioned enclave on wheels, where you have sound system and radio telephones in the 1980s and 90s, and you drive in your little bubble of air-conditioned luxury. And this was the model. And even if only 5% of the population could afford this, it was enough to choke the landscape with traffic and create these types of conditions where it used to be that the population here could go to work and go to school and go to church and go to mosque, but then the walls went up and now they're cut off in order to get where they used to walk to places. Now they have to take buses or more likely motorbikes to get where they're going. And so that's the outcome of Jakarta, Indonesia. About 15 years after I wrote that piece that some of you read, saying Orange County, Java. I don't know if they read it or not, but the developers at Lippo Group, some of whom I interviewed for that chapter in the book, came up with a development called Orange County, Java. Sorry, I don't think it was my fault. I think they would have done that anyway. Okay, that's the story of Jakarta and how the government subsidies for home ownership that were intended to help Indonesians purchase homes. It turned out that a vast majority of the population did not qualify for that subsidy. So the wealthiest Indonesians used the government housing subsidy to purchase second, third, fourth, fifth homes as investment properties. And that's the boom that we saw here. Many of these developments never were built, that simply by hiring architects to create plans and visions like this, they were able to secure bank loans and they were able to sell the right to purchase. So it's beyond buying houses that nobody's ever going to live in. Now they were found a way to make money buying the right to buy houses that will never actually even be built. It's like what are the digital artworks? NFTs. So it's like NFTs. It doesn't really exist. It's not really a thing, but you can buy it and it has value as long as you can find someone to buy it from you. Or as long as you can convince enough people that someday someone will buy it from you for slightly more. As long as that story can be told, then it becomes an instrument of wealth accumulation. So even if this stuff never gets built, so if you have a classmate who doesn't care about the world and wants to just become filthy rich, this is not a bad model. Just design things, never build them, just sell them, right? The NFT of architectural design. Okay, sorry, someone's going to do it. Might as well be us, right? Okay, let's move to China. So once I left Indonesia with this perspective, everything that's happening in China in the 90s and since all of a sudden makes sense. People think that China is all about, we can make iPhones really cheaply, that it's about manufacturing. True, but it's not just manufacturing. It's also taking land that has zero financial value because of communism, where there is no private ownership in the communist state of China up until 1989. But after 1989, they want to succeed globally, financially, so they find a way to capture the value of land. And a big part of China's financial success, some of us believe, come from that, maybe more from the land valuation than from cheap manufacturing. there's some books that have just been written, but let's look at China. So in terms of operating, everything we're talking about here are operating systems. What's the role of architectural design in the context of larger operating systems? Like it or not, everything we do occupies a role in the context of larger operating systems. So one of the points of becoming an effective professional is to see those operating systems and know how to game those operating systems to trick them into doing something positive, whereas everybody else, the graduates of the other schools, they're just going to keep doing what architects do. But we want the graduates of Wentworth to understand the operating system, to game the system, and make it produce positive outcomes against the grain of what the operating system in its normal operation would do. So here's an operating system. Back in the 19th century, it became very fashionable in England to drink tea. You know about tea time in England? 5 o'clock, everybody stops what they're doing and they have tea, right? But where does tea come from? It comes from China mostly, but it then was grown in the colonies, other British colonies. But back before the international monetary system, you can't buy tea from China unless you sell China something that they need. And so the British would go to China and say, okay, we want to buy your tea. And the people selling tea in China say, well, where's your local currency to buy the tea? He said, well, we don't have any. What can we sell you? And so they said, can we sell you textiles and fabrics that we manufacture in our factories in England? China says, no thanks, we're fine. Our textiles are better. Can we sell you other manufactured goods that we have? China says, nope, we're fine. Our craftspeople are doing fine. Not interested. And so Great Britain does what great Western powers do. They do what any of us would have done, I imagine, is they do the next logical thing. They grow opium in India under slave conditions. And then they take it to China and they illegally sell opium to the Chinese population who get addicted en masse. And now they have local currency with which to purchase the tea to bring back to England, right? Beautiful, beautiful operating system, right? Little bit of harm. So China doesn't like this. So they attack one of the ships in the harbor. And so Great Britain uses this as a pretext to send its navy and to pound Chinese defenses and the Opium Wars. And Great Britain wins in two phases of the Opium War, and they take over Shanghai, and they divide it up among business interests of the Western nations. This is Germany, Turkey, Japan, England, the US, France. They're all dividing up the pie, which is Shanghai. So for decades, the Bund in Shanghai is the place where the ships come and go on the Huangpu River of Shanghai. And it becomes basically like Manhattan. It becomes a trading center, and these US architects show up and they build skyscrapers that they would build one and put it in New York City, and then they'd go to Shanghai and they'd build one in Shanghai. And so Shanghai along the Huangpu River became one of the great skyscraper skylines of the world as part of this international trade with China. There's Manhattan and Shanghai. So this is just to say that China was never formally colonized, but it was humiliated. China was the greatest civilization the world had ever seen, and it was humiliated by Western powers. And ever since, they've been struggling to reclaim their position as the greatest, most powerful civilization the world has ever known. And so in the 1990s, when after Mao dies and Deng Xiaoping is opening up to the West, he wants to transform Shanghai into a new global city. We already have New York, London, and Tokyo as the global cities of finance, the most wealthy cities in the world, the most powerful cities in the world. China says, we want one of those. So who are you going to call? Ghostbusters. No. Architects. And so they have an international competition. And what do? You do competitive emulation. You say, there's all this, so here's the Bund of Shanghai, and there's all this rice field over here because it's too hard to get across the Huangpu River, it's too far. So they're gonna say, let's build some tunnels and bridges and get across here. And let's make a global financial center here. And let's make it bigger than anything the world has ever seen. So they call the architects, the architects say, we have something in blue, we have the island of Manhattan, we could just put the island of Manhattan there. How do you like that? Right, so they literally plop Manhattan down and say, what about that? Or we could do Venice. Venice is a successful city from history. Let's do Venice. Or we could offer you, what's that one? That's another, I'm going the wrong way. Or Paris, we could give you Paris, competitive emulation. And so all of these international firms compete and offer their models of what to do. And surprise, surprise, the Chinese team wins. And when they alter their competition entry, they basically take the best ideas of the architects from the West and they combine them and they build the city, the new city of Shanghai called Pudong. And here it is. It's home to about a dozen of the 20 tallest buildings in the world. You can see the shadows. And so they built all these buildings, but no one lived there. They had to convince people to move there. Anytime a company from the US would come or anywhere and say, we want to sell things to the citizens of China, the Chinese government would say, okay, you can have access to our markets, just lease 10 million square meters of space in Pudong. We don't care if you use it or not. We just want you to lease the space to support this place. And so,
if you saunter through Tianducheng, you will find Parisian facade and lovely cobblestone streets without any hint of subtlety. They have also literally recreated the Arc de Triomphe, Champs-Élysées Tower.
So competitive emulation. So Pudong, they did Pudong and it was empty for decades, but it's full now. But it got filled up by forcing people to use it. Part of the release of the land is to build cities, even if no one's going to live there, because it's a financial instrument, just like the houses outside of Solo, Java. Empty homes are a way to carry value with the promise of it being more valuable later.
If you saunter, the whole city is one big investment plan gone wrong. 80 to 90% of the apartments in this city are owned by investors who have held on to them and are hoping to make money off them in the long term. They are also investors who are so wealthy that they do not need to budge and lower the price. And this is a nationwide problem. In China, there are 65 million empty units, which is enough to house the entire population of France. These empty units could even home at least 25% of its homeless population of 300 million. The reason why there are so many homes is that China's middle class views property as a safe investment. They are not allowed to invest outside of China. So having more than one home is a safe way of keeping your life savings intact and invested in brick and mortar. China's real estate sector is also a huge part of its economy. The country wants to continue growing its economy, so it also needs to continue growing its real estate sector. And the only way to continue growing its real estate sector is to continue building and building.
And so they've built a series of new towns. This one is Thamestown. It's a duplication of London. And it's become, it's too expensive for anyone to live there. It was supposed to house college students, but it's very busy during the day because couples like to go for their wedding photos there. So the shops turn into dressing rooms to set up for the photography. The people of China who have taken on debt and purchased condos there, and they buy appliances, they buy refrigerators and electric stoves, but they can't afford the electrical bills. So the electricity is off, they live in these condo towers, and they do their laundry in the local drainage ditch. And so this is a weird consequence of housing being developed as an investment instrument. And so these are called ghost cities, and they're all over the place. The evidence suggests that someday people will live in these cities, but it might take a while. It might take decades. And because of what we talked about before about dropping population, China also has a declining population. It might be, the question is, what will happen first? Will people move in here, or will the population drop so that none of this is useful? But a lot of American architects have been involved in designing these structures. And one way to increase the value is to reduce supply. So even after you build them, if you build so many of them, and you need to increase the value of the ones that were made, maybe it's worth just taking $154 million worth of investment in these towers and just
high-rise
Oh,
towers.
this is still in
Part of the Young Star City
Yes.
Phase 2 projects and have been sitting unfinished for 8 years were demolished with explosives. The demolition, viewed by tens of thousands of onlookers.
Okay? Is everybody okay?
You said that they forced people to live there. How do you force?
They didn't force people to live there. They pushed people off. Remember push and pull?
Oh, yeah.
Pull is good. We get pulled into the, oh, look, a nice, beautiful condo in the sky, honey. Look, you have this modern kitchen. No, they get pushed off the land. They're trying to, the largest movement of human population in history has been off of the countryside in China and pushed into cities. But it's caused homelessness.
But how did they push it? Did they just raise prices, or did they?
No, they evict. The local government will evict people off the land. Okay. So Dubai. Wentworth students are in Dubai or going to Dubai, right?
In the fall, yeah.
In the fall. So what's up with Dubai? It's a desert, right? But it's also got the tallest building in the world. What is up with that? Why does Dubai have the tallest building in the world? You guessed it, it's not the use value. Look at this. There's plenty of room. Why did Chicago invent skyscrapers? Because it's hard to get to work and the value of the land. If you really look at Chicago, it's very expensive. So once the elevator, the steel frame and fireproof terracotta was invented, it made sense. It made economic sense because of use value to go up. There's no demand here. You can be 20 minutes away from work and live however you want. It's not a question of use value. It's 100% exchange value. These buildings are there because the sovereign wealth fund of Bahrain is a certain size. They want to diversify their investment. They need 30% of their sovereign wealth fund to be in real estate. So they build a building. The size of the building is equal to the size of the amount of money that they need to park in real estate. other countries, the sovereign wealth funds, they need a vehicle to park that wealth value into real estate. So they ask architects to design buildings in order to be worth a certain amount of value that matches the amount that they need to park in real estate. They don't, again, it's like the houses outside of Solar Java. No one needs to live there. That's not the point. If someone lives there, someone doesn't live there, it's still performing its purpose, its parking value. Then the sovereign wealth fund of Dubai was really big, so they needed a bigger tower. So I took Wentworth students there on our way to Bali. There's an interesting thing. There's an observation deck here, and then there's a fancy observation deck here that costs $60 a person. And above that point, this is the same height as the tallest building in Boston. And no one even owns anything there. The size of the footprint of the floor is too small to use it, to even pretend to use it for anything. And so that height is there just to make it the tallest building in the world.
So is there actually like program on each of the floors, or is it just empty space just to get the verticality in?
There are programs because, again, you have to be able to tell the story. This is valuable to someone 10 years from now. And so they lay it out as condos, they put furniture in it. At the base, there's all kinds of shopping and luxury stuff, and people use the shopping mall at the base. It's great, great shopping mall. Beautiful fountains, beautiful landscaping. Feels like a really great city, well designed. But as you go up, there are condos and condos and condos, and they're furnished and they're owned. But when you say, well, what's the occupancy rate? They will respond, oh, there's a 98% ownership rate. I said, no. What's the occupancy rate? 98% ownership rate. Ownership is not the question. It's about occupancy. It's about use value.
Yeah, but I don't remember you're getting there, but this is happening everywhere.
We're getting there.
Okay.
So we did this in History of Architecture, learning from Las Vegas. What do you do to maintain the story, the ability to tell the story that this real estate is going to be valuable in 10 years? You celebrate every aspect of it. As long as you can maintain a viable story that the most expensive property at the center of the real estate market has value, you can maintain the story of the entire market of the metropolis. So this ritual spectacle is there to celebrate and reinforce the value of the place. So yes, it's happening everywhere. Shell companies are purchasing the most expensive real estate. We're running out of time, so I'm going to breeze through some of this. And One Dalton Place, you'll see it here. At dinner time in the winter, you look up and the lights on the lower floors are on because people are home. There's use value going on in that building at the lower floors. But at the upper floors, the highest value apartments, it's exchange value. People own it, but they don't live there. Maybe the lights are on a timer, but the utility bills tell the story. So architectural researchers look at the utility bills to determine which units are occupied, which units are not occupied. And in every city of the world, the most expensive luxury apartments are unoccupied because they are there for exchange value. And when the value of the most expensive apartments goes up, then the value, the cost of your apartment rental on Mission Hill or in Alston Brighton or on the Wentworth campus goes up. So it's an economic model where if you pull, when the most expensive real estate value in the metropolis goes up, the value of everything in the region goes up. The size of the real economy, I don't know if you can see it, this here, in 1980, this was the size of the economy globally. And so much of the economy is about financial wealth that since 1980 to around 2020, the numbers aren't right here, but the scale is correct. The size of the global economy has gotten much larger, but not because of the real things, not because of use value. It's basically exchange value. A big part of this is real estate. And this is the iceberg typology. Zoning controls limit the floor area ratio of a house. There's one just like this in my neighborhood in Cambridge, where they took a historic house, they moved it over, they built, God only knows what they built underground, and then they moved the house back on. It's a beautiful house. And I see people coming and going, but they're not the owners of the house. And this is called an iceberg house. So this is a general idea called form follows finance. The reason buildings are shaped the way they're shaped is because of the exchange value. So this is a very recent thing. A book came out in 2021 by Matthew Solis. This is in in Spain. These houses are investment properties, and you can tell by the absence of any sign of life. There's not even a car. There's a car, but it's pretty devoid of life. These are investment properties, and this is the shape of our cities. The pencil towers, the ultra thins. This is what some of this is the form of exchange value. These are the luxury apartments. Whether anyone ever lives there or not is a separate question. We don't have time for that. We don't have time for that. This is the question that this is the graph that is so important to the 21st century, the space of your practice. This is the median household income, and this is the median sales price of a house. So it used to be that the annual income was 3 to 4 times, the cost of a house was 3 to 4 times your annual income. But we're going to do this next week. We're going to look at what you're going to make and how much of a house you can afford and where is it going to be and how long your commute into Boston is going to be if you work in a firm in Boston. So since 1985, again, sorry about this, it's changed just nationally to going from 3 to 4 times your annual income to 6 times. But it varies by city in the United States. Here's Boston right here. Currently, Boston, the sales price, the median sales price of a home is 8.5 times the median income. So it's one of the more expensive cities in the country, and that's the world.
What is that spike in the middle that there's back from there?
Oh, this is the financial crisis of 2007, 2008.
Okay.
The subprime mortgage crisis. Every downturn in the economy over the past several centuries has been caused in large part, if not totally, by bubbles of housing value bursting. Yes.
So, if it's called a crisis, I assume it hurt people, but housing prices going way up hurts people.
Yeah.
And then it crashing also hurts people.
If you don't own a house, going up hurts you. If you own a house, going up is great. When the price goes down, people who own houses are in big trouble. Some of them lose their homes. Some of them become homeless. But it's a good thing for everybody else. We'll talk about the politics of home ownership. I think we'll get a chance to do that. So what's the solution? Well, once again, remember that first lecture? don't worry, it's not the population. It's about the net impact of each person. It's not about coastal flooding, it's about managing the landscape. Similar, this is solvable. This is a situation that has been chosen. Solis points out this is not a flaw in the system. This is the feature of the system because this crazy skewing of wealth. The purpose of the operating system is to create insane wealth. That is the purpose of the system. It hasn't always been the case. In the 1920s and 30s in Austria, they said, well, let's provide housing. Let's provide high quality rental housing for the majority of the people of Vienna, Austria. And so they invented this Gemeindebau system where they used government finance to purchase land and build housing. And the goal was to extend the costs of that out 100 years and reduce the operating costs so they could charge low rents. They did that, it worked, and it's still working. Here's an example of housing built in the 70s that was written about by the New York Times in 2023. And they say, look, it's not hard. You can have fantastic housing quality and very large units. And the rental cost for these units is $800 a month. Who pays more than $800 a month? Right? We all do. It's got playgrounds. It's got spacious apartments, $800 a month. So it's a choice. It's an option. You can finance housing construction in a way, and you can design it with low operating costs so that you could make rental property that is affordable by the majority of people. It's an option, it's a choice. So we made that choice in the United States, but it didn't work out. We don't have time for this. But we had public housing where we started this model, and this is going to be a topic moving forward, because of race policy, this housing was abandoned. It wasn't supported. And the architects were blamed by Charles Jenks. He said, it's a problem of design. Don't believe it. It was not a problem of design. It was a problem of policy. And 15 years after they built it, they tore it down. Okay. So the punchline is, it's a matter of choice. All of these things, it's a matter of choice. Yes, exchange value is out of control, and it's displacing, it's making home ownership and even housing, being able to keep away from the homeless shelter. It's making it more and more challenging for more and more people, but it's a choice. It's this way because it was chosen to be this way. And we know what we need to do to make it not the way the world is. Okay, I'll stop there. Sorry.
No, that's good. We're good. So I have to say that my position is in you're very happy, right?
Yeah, I got it.
So there is something very fun in this classes because of the dynamic of the questions and the presentation we have to provide. So there are certain things that we discussed that I cannot reject the talk nor to answer these questions. So I will do my best to connect fragmentation with the imposition of the Western methods into local dynamics. So I don't know if you remember the last week we discussed about transformation of a primary commodity into something else elevates profits. If I have wheat and I have transformed wheat into flour, that I will make profit. Do you remember that? And that created the deterioration cycle in the global south. Do you remember that? There is a second way to create profit. It's fragmentation. So if you have wheat and you transform wheat into flour, you have more money for the wheat, and you transform flour into a cake, you have more profit that you sell the flour. You find, yeah? Yeah, you have more profit per grain of wheat. But at the same time, if you have the cake and you sell the cake in $20, you will have less money that divide that in 8 parts, and you can sell each part in $4, you will get $32. If you sell the whole cake, you will have less money than if you split the cake in parts and you divide and you sell the cakes into fragments. Are you getting that? Fragmentation is a source of income. It's how capitalism works. You fragment it in order to have more profits. And this is what happened in the land. Land fragmentation is basically a source of profit. You can have more speculation of land. You can have more profit for the land. If you have a big farm and you sell the farm, you will have less profit than you just split the land to fragments and sell these micro units for a small piece for house. So fragmentation of the land is a Western method of capitalist success. So are you getting this connection? So, and this is really important because this is how capitalism has happened across the world. Because at the same time, when you fragmented the land, you can have certain land that will have more value than the other, that also produce inequality. Because sometimes you divide the land, and if you have a land that is in front of a road, you'll have more value of that land than the one that is behind the road. So if you scale up of the whole city, the fragmentation of the whole environment will create different areas with more level of value. I mean, change value. So which makes we produce more value, but also more inequality. So I'm talking about that because one of the reasons, because I started to study urbanism, is because of fragmentation. I was concerned about your question about why fragmentation is happening. And it took a while for me to understand that this is happening because we want to increase exchange value. So I started working in Petare. Do you know what is Petare? The place that we discussed before, the self-use environment that we discussed before. And I discovered that Petare is as fragmented as it is today. And fragmentation has a lot of problems sometimes because fragmentation creates difficulties for people to reach out to the opportunities. I'm trying to connect this with the previous week because the fragmentation of the land sometimes creates divisions between peoples and the resources that is here. So the Western method of success is fragmentation of the land in order to increase the exchange value. And this fragmentation creates spatial and social segregation and reduce the level of opportunity. So today I'm gonna be really fast, and you will have this presentation. And I use this word today. It's a play word between adopt and adapt, because that word reminds us that sometimes we can adopt ideas that come from somewhere else, and sometimes we can adapt these ideas to our local resources. So my point is that my statement today is not always bad that ideas flows. It's when these ideas are basically imposed or adopted rather than adapted. So I'm going to give you two examples. One is about an adoption, is the relationship between San Francisco and Caracas. Believe it or not, the urban plan of Caracas comes from San Francisco. And there is a disclosure here. This presentation is really personal. So I will talk about several personal experiences. So allow me to do that, please. So this comes from a part of my doctoral research. I was really lucky to travel to San Francisco and to spend days and days in Bancroft Library in Berkeley, researching about some of the papers of this guy, Francis Violi. Was a very, very well-known researcher and urbanist from San Francisco. And I was reading his paper. and his documents. And I discovered that he was hired by Caracas to do the urban plan in 1951. And so, and half the receipt, he made a lot of profit paid by Caracas in order to do their plans. And he also he got married with a Venezuelan lady. So then he became a Venezuelan by he was by love, by work as well. And there is a lot of demonstration that he made a lot of success there. And the other thing that was fun for me that I discovered in the papers, and this is part of my doctoral research, I have to publish that. That he worked for Puerto Rico and for Caracas. So this is Puerto Rico, and this is Caracas, Petare. This is La Perla in Puerto Rico, and this is Petare in Caracas. They both look really similar. Are you agree? If you look at the image, in reality, they're really, really different. So from Biolic, they were the same. They were both Mexican countries. Do you understand the joke? Okay, they were, but they're at the end, they're really, really different. I don't have time to explain this joke, guys. So they look similar, but they are different. And I discovered that when you read the planning document from La Perla in Puerto Rico, 1946, and I read the documents of the current planning documents for Caracas, that is still ongoing, they are both the same.
Wow.
So the planning documents for Petare are basically a translation of the planning documents of Puerto Rico.
Wow.
So easy peasy. I got a job. I do the same thing twice in English and in Spanish, and I make
Get paid twice.
I make it pay twice. So they were called M district or zona AM. This is basically M is mejora. It's basically zone to be improved. Yeah, this is an slum. It has to be improved. They're both the same, both Mexican countries. I can do the same plan for both. So basically, it was an adoption of the plan. They translated the plan without any change. So I don't know if you speak Spanish or English. You can read both, and they are exactly the same thing. It's just a translation, a Google translation, to make without any change. So these four documents are the same, 1946 and 1992, in two different locations. But what is fun, and that comes with this current plan in Caracas. I have to say that this is a plan that is still ongoing in Caracas. From 1951, there is another problem in Caracas. Why do we have not updated this plan in 50, 60, more than 70 years? That's another problem. But the facts, and this is basically what this is doing. This is basically fragmentation of the land in order to make more profit. Because there were some people, rich people in Caracas, that wanted this fragmentation because these operating systems have been discussed before. So the plan was basically fragmentation of the land into zones. I know that you already had exterior and theory too. You already discussed the zoning plan, the four functions. Do you remember that?
The radiant city of Corbusier, the four functions.
Okay. So basically you have four functions. Also you have four functions. What are there? The working, living, recreation, and circulation. And you divide this land into these four functions. You fragmented the land according to uses. And that's also a source of profit. So, but the fun thing is that this project from Caracas, that is the fragmentation of the land, have the same form and nomenclature than the San Francisco plan. 1937. So if you read these legends, it's the same thing. So Caracas plan was an adoption from Puerto Rico plan that was an adoption from San Francisco Bay plan. 1937, all of them made by the same urbanist, Francis Biolic, a great scholar from Berkeley Institute of People. So are you getting me? So basically is this system, Francis Biolic, as a leader of this operating system where you make the fragmentation of the land a Western method of success, regardless of the local method. Is it clear? This is what I call adoption. But I want to be really, yeah, that comes from Le Corbusier. But I want to be really optimistic today, and I want to say that there is also forms of adaptation. We can adopt or we can adapt. So it's not bad to look at precedents. You're doing this today in Studio 6. You have a presentation of precedents today. We're not pretending that you adopt the learning from your precedents with your project. They won't be the same. If you take the same details and you put that in your project, you will do what Biolix did, okay? We expect that you adapt your learning from the precedents to your project to do something better. This is what happened with the relationship between Barcelona and Medellin. I don't want to spend all the details because we were talking about Medellin last week. And we will talk about Barcelona, where we talk about orange grids in few weeks. So, but this is one amazing case with an idea from Barcelona was adapted to Medellin, but adapted to the local conditions and changed it to the local conditions. And this happened basically because of people. I have to say that because these are good friends of Robert and I. So I usually have good beers with this group of friends, both friend clubs. So they were basically primary leaders of this translation. This guy, Alejandro Cheguerri, he was here. Yeah. Few years ago, he was the guy who helped us to help Wentworth to invite Sergio Fajardo to the city, to the Watson Hall. He was basically studying Barcelona for a while, and he understood Barcelona. And after he understood Barcelona, he moved to Medellin, and he translated this case of a study from Medellin to Medellin, and he adapted these ideas to the new local conditions. That was the reason that, because we can say that both Barcelona and Medellin were really successful cases of transformation. So going to be fasten your seatbelts again. I'm going to explain briefly both cases, first Barcelona and later Medellin. So Liam, so you, I'm going to skip that, but if you want to read a definition of public space, come to this slide, please. And Liam, you talk about that in your analysis. That was Ildefonso Cerdá, who created this transformation, this amazing urban grid that basically regulated the growth of the entire land after the growth of the downtown, the Gothic downtown. So it's a city that has been experimenting about ways of urban success for a while. If you are visiting Girona next semester, who's going to Girona? Okay, you will enjoy several of these micro wineries that are around the city for sale. So, be prepared because this is a laboratory of learning in architecture and urbanism. So and basically this laboratory started with this model. So if you read this, it's fun because you have the grid, and the grids creates blocks, and the blocks create buildings. And in the original model, sometimes you have three pieces that sometimes you have buildings here, sometimes you have buildings here, sometimes you have buildings here to have a lot of green spaces. What happens? Because of the grid, the city was a lot of success, and currently all of these pieces are filled out with a little border in the center that is a community space, having what we know today as a Barcelona block. So, but originally it was basically the grid and the parcels, and today they were all of them filled out to create this energetic, compact city that we have today. So, but I told you that the city has a lot of renovation. So because that happened in the 19th century, then the dictator Franco came to the power. So because of Franco, there was a lot less investment and less growth and less community participation in the city. That used to happen with dictators. But when the dictators fell down, they started to do a lot of research. And in the university, they did this research, asking people through participatory design about what they want to do in the city. Because the city was so filled out and so dense because of the compact cities, as I told before, people were asking to do a scattering amount of new public spaces. If you look at the data, you can look at that in your slides later. 48% of the people want to have more, want to do more public spaces through participation. So in the 80s, there was 1980, there was an energy of people asking more public spaces led by the university and that created what was called the very famous urban social movement. Urban social movement in Barcelona was the demanding of more public spaces through participatory design by people and promoted by the Socialist Party in Barcelona. And for that, the government decided to take this urban social movement and integrate that into the plan. And they created, so you see here, all the phases of the elections, everything happened because of democracy in this case. After the Francos died, there was the new elections, and we have two different mayors that created a new plan to integrate these public spaces into the urban grid in Barcelona. So it's the success of the grid with the demand of public spaces, one made by the developers and the other made by people. So some way they were interacting between the needs of the people and the needs of the development. At the same time, and this is one of the reasons because I think this space is so important, there were a lot of research that happened during the dictatorship, and many scholars were publishing about how they can transform the city. I'm saying that because many of the success that we have in cities happened in universities. So happened because of people researching in universities. So, and for that became two major forms of urban transformation. And this is probably the most important, this is my 30% of today. So this is the most important source of knowledge that I have to tell you today. So there were two guys. That guy was the commissioner, the director of planning during the 1980s and 1983s, Oriol Bohigas. And later, after that, there was the director of planning, Joan Busquets. And they established two forms of urban development, okay? Please listen to me, I'm gonna explain that, and you will vote. Which one you feel is better? Is that okay? Yeah. Okay. So, Oriol Bohigas believed that everything happened because of small pieces of urban projects and the market. He believed that if you develop small scattered pieces of great urban projects, great public spaces, the market itself would regenerate the connections to create the connectivity, or less fragmented dynamics in the city. This is Oriol Bohigas. He called that urban rehabilitation. A small scattered project and the market will connect that. On the contrary, Joan Busquets talked about urban restructuring, which is completely different. He said that we have to focus on public transportation. And if everything is connected, and with certain centralities, everything will emerge as a connected city. Raise your hand if you think urban rehabilitation is better. Liam, raise your hand if you have restructuring is better. Well, who believes that's not for you? Okay, Russian have more. I need your hands. Who believes urban rehabilitation is better? Liam, okay, we have some. And who believes that urban restructuring is better? Great. So let me tell you what the story told us. So after that, Oriol Bohigas developed this. They published that in books. Just for the record, the urban project of urban rehabilitation basically was the transformation of the same map of urban spaces by the urban social movement into a plan. It basically took these things that happened in the urban social movement in the 80s. So this is the type of project developed by Oriol Bohigas. They were amazing, I have to say. So they were the MACBA, the Museum of Contemporary Art by Richard Mayer, the Plaza for los Países Catalanes by Piñón Villaplana, several projects that were scattered in the city, not really connected. And he believed, no worries, the city will connect that itself. After that, in the middle, they did a traditional master plan. And after that, we had the Joan Busquets plan. Basically, the strategy was to select a set of centrality. Basically, a centrality is a space that has a lot of investment, a lot of public space, but highly connected. This is centrality for John Busquets. He decided to do a group of centrality that is published in his book, but highly related to the urban transportation systems. So the plan was centrality and transportation, centrality and transportation. And I have no time to show all of them, but I'm going to show you only one example of that. He discovered that in this fragment, and this is a very, very, very positive way to create urban transformation. Some of them were he discovered that in the grid there are certain areas that are abandoned land or factories that could be developed, and he did a small plan inside of them, and then this is the current situation today, where you have certain transformation like these little houses in this area that were abandoned, but highly connected with the grid that are around. For me, it's important that you take your time to look at these examples later. And if you're going there, visit them, because this is a great source of design. So how you can revitalize certain areas through new connectivities, imagining the new typologies of streets and the new topologies of housing. This is like, for example, Rafael Moneo project inserted in the grid, and how the projects interconnect, help them to correct the fabrics of the city. So John Busquets demonstrated that you can use architecture and also revitalization and development and investment for the good of everyone. If you connect the fabric that you are developing with the system of transportation and connectivity that was happening before. But at the same time, something he demonstrated is that there is no dichotomy between a small development and big development, because in many of these examples, he took some of the plazas developed by Oriol Bohigas and integrated into his project. So that was really smart. So there is no a competition with both strategies if both strategies can succeed. Actually, I would say that the city understood the success of urban development and of urban revitalization, would say, because of Oriol Bohigas. The little examples that put scattering in the city were a demonstration like this one, that this is great, and then when everybody noticed that this is great, everyone's want it, and then John Busquets came from the ring to the here, so he came like something that everybody wants because of that project. So
Can we vote for both?
yeah, can we vote for both now? Who wants both, please? So one helps to create the other. One helps to create the other. Thank you. So again, you have here several examples about how he did. So I suggest you to look them in detail. That is a fun one, because they were in debate about that. And when Joan Busquets created this project, you know who won this competition? Oriol Bohigas. So he participated in the competition. He won this one, integrating this project and in the front of the city. And this is a great example. You can see a plethora of examples of good design. You can see everything looks very, very, very well integrated, but at the same time, you have different pieces of land that have different typology of housing. So here you can see, that you have a townhouse, you have townhouses, you have houses that are in the middle, like a tiny suburb in the middle, you have continuous houses, you have a monumental housing, all together. If you, as a designer, can create strategies to put everything together. So yeah, again, invite you to look at that in detail. And then it came the case of Medellin. Medellin, again, we talked about that before. I just basically want to say briefly how Barcelona was really influential in Medellin. So ideas that move overseas sometimes works if you adapt them to the local conditions. In this case, Alejandro Echeverri, he was professor in University of Polytechnic of Catalunya. He worked in Barcelona. He learned from Barcelona. And he was living in Barcelona, and he was called by Sergio Fajardo, come here. I want you to come here and to do this project. What he did, the strategy was really simple. He understood a demand of public spaces that happened before. Do you have any similarity? Same thing. Was a demand of public spaces by the people, some of them done in the self-produced environment with a local, at a local scale, and there was scaffolding in the city by Primet movement, as Oriol Bohigas did in Barcelona, and he was taking advantage of the many competition of public spaces, and the project was really simple. He created an infrastructure, take an infrastructure that existed before, which is a cable car, and certain areas of development or redevelopment, social centrality, that, but everything very well connected. Any similarity with Barcelona? Same strategy. You have the centralities, highly connected centrality, the library parks that Robert explained 2 weeks ago or 1 week ago?
3 weeks.
3 weeks ago, and all connected with a new infrastructure of connectivity, but most important than that, highly connected with the structure of the city. I'm gonna stop here for 1 minute to say that the great success of Barcelona, sorry, of Medellin, are not the library park. We were talking about that right then alone. What is the great success? It's not here, it's not the library park, it's not the cable car station. It's the journey between the cable car station and the library park. You get that? You go down to the cable car station, and when you walk to the library park, you can see the best empanadas. I'm not kidding, the best empanadas in all that I eat. Because of that journey helped that lady to sell empanadas, and that's what happened. So in some ways, Oriol was right as well.
Yeah.
When you have a great system of connections, city itself creates the energy, and people itself creates the energy for success. If you understand the local dynamic of that connection. So deciding where to put the dots to connect the library park with cable cars, and how you create plans and support for the investment of the people will help people to succeed. Again, the success of Barcelona, sorry, of Medellin, are not infrastructure, are not the library park, or the cable car. It's how this infrastructure helps people to revitalize the structure of the city, the connectivity of the city. So these are some of the examples of a space of connection that we have in Medellin. So in this case, they create the structure of the water course to build a system of public spaces and create public spaces every time that you have these journeys that connect transversally to the water course, creating amazing public spaces like that one that we have below. We have the library park that even if it fails, the city is still there. And this comes with the last learning for today is the Bilbao effect. So we were discussing that in class. Who knows who is the Bilbao effect? Can I stop here or not? Do you want me to explain this? Okay, the Bilbao effect basically came with this idea of Frank Gehry, who built this project in 1997. And because of this project, Bilbao boomed. And everybody believed that because if we have a great architecture like the library in Medellin, and then that's making the connections, you will boom. So cities, if you have a great building by a great architect, the city will boom. And that happened in Barcelona and Bilbao. So the city is a great success today. And that happens everywhere. You have Bilbao, the Bilbao effects in Austria, in Harbin, in Mexico City, and everywhere. And some of them collapse because of the architect. So the city had to spend that amount of money in these fancy buildings, and so many of the cities collapsed because they weren't capable to generate the economy, the financial economy, because of this project. So basically, it was a new operating system that is happening now. That is the imposition of the new strategy, a Western method for success is one thing by the STAR system, an architect by a STAR architect. I'm gonna say introduced into a local project, into a local city, because supposedly this is a way to say, sometimes they were adopted and they failed, and sometimes they were adapted and they were good. And we discovered, and this is something that Robert and I were talking a lot, is the case of Bilbao was a success, not precisely because of the building, but because of the many systems that were following the connectivity of that project. So if you go to Bilbao, you can visit the Guggenheim. It's a great building, I would say.
Some
What
of
did you-
us should do that, right?
Sorry?
Some of us should go to Bilbao.
Yeah, you have to go. But if you go to
Right,
there,
Julie? Right, we're going.
yeah, if
We're
you're,
going.
if,
October.
okay, if you're going in October, please remember that Bilbao, the Guggenheim is not enough. Was not enough.
It's the cherry on top of the ice cream sundae.
Yeah, but you also have a great system of transportation, basically by great station designed by John Novell. You have a great ria or river or water courses across the river connecting different public spaces and different infrastructure. And most important, you have the most amazing system of restaurants by one of the great foods of the Spain. What's one of the best in the from
Best food in the world.
This is the best food in the world. So there were strategies to integrate this to the Bilbao project. Bilbao effects is not about the Guggenheim. It's about the systems of economies and social connection that happened that were promoted by the Guggenheim. Are you following me? And that plan was designed, actually. And the leader was Cesar Pelli. So I'm not saying something that was a casual. It was a plan. But not everyone understood that the way for these methods to be successful in the local is by the integration of the local producers of food into this system. And this is when adaptation comes. So this is what I have for you today. Do we have time?
No,
No, we don't.
we're over time.
Yeah, so you have a role is to put everything of this in our Google folder for today. I will come with that again on Tuesday. Thank you.
Everyone.
Thank you.